Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 20, Text 38. Etavan lokavinyasah mana lakshana samsthabhih vichintitah kavibhih sah tu panchashat koti ganitasya bhugolasya turiya bhagah ayam lokaloka achalah. एतावाल्लोक विन्यासो मान लक्षण संस्थाभिर्विचिन्तितः कविभिः स तु पंचाशत् कोटि गणितस्य भूगोलस्य तुरीय भागोऽयं लोकालोकाचलः. एतावान, this much. Lokavinyasa, the placing of the different planets. Mana, with measurements. Lakshana, symptoms. Samsthabhi, as well as with their different situations. Vichintitaha, established by scientific calculations. Kavibhihi, by learned scholars. Sah, that. Tu, but. Panchashat koti, 500 million yojanas. Ganitasya, which is measured at. Bhugolasya, of the planetary system known as Bhugolaka. Turiya bhagah, 1/4. Ayam, this. Lokaloka achalah, the mountain known as Lokaloka. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: learned scholars who are free from mistakes, illusions, and propensities to cheat have thus described the planetary systems and their particular symptoms, measurements, and locations. With great deliberation, they have established the truth that the distance between Sumeru and the mountain known as Lokaloka is 1/4 of the diameter of the universe, or in other words, 125 million yojanas, or 1 billion miles. Please repeat. Learned scholars who are free from mistakes, illusions, and propensities to cheat have thus described the planetary systems and their particular symptoms, measurements, and locations. With great deliberation, they have established the truth that the distance between Sumeru and the mountain known as Lokaloka is 1/4 of the diameter of the universe, or in other words, 125 million yojanas, or 1 billion miles. Purport. This purport is very interesting because Prabhupada just puts the Sanskrit and then leaves it for us to. Okay, let's see. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given accurate astronomical information about the location of Lokaloka mountain, the movements of the sun globe, and the distance between the sun and the circumference of the universe. However, the technical terms used in the astronomical calculations given by the Jyotirveda are difficult to translate into English. Therefore, to satisfy the reader, we may include the exact Sanskrit statement given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which records exact calculations regarding universal affairs. Then there is this huge Sanskrit. So what I'm going to do is we will chant the Mangalacharan, because I just want to go through this, but I don't want to explain without the Mangalacharan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, before we go there, I want to touch upon the previous verse, which was done by Sri Gopal Prabhu the other day. I think, no, Priti Gauranga Prabhu. So here, there's a very interesting line here in this 5:20:37, and that is Salokatrayante parita Ishwarena vahito yasmat Suryadinam dhruvapavarganam jyotirgananam. This is interesting, because usually we have heard, especially in our Puranic descriptions of the universe, that the sun is the only luminary in the sky. Right? The stars are probably reflections of sun's light, just like the moon. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Nakshatranam aham shashi. So among the stars and the moon. So Prabhupada describes there that that means moon is one of the stars. So that means the stars, according to modern astronomy, are like the sun. Right? They're also like a sun is a star, they say. But Bhagavad Gita says moon is a star. Right? And Prabhupada actually challenges that idea of a modern understanding, where he says the stars, if they are like the moon, that means if the moon, they say, is reflecting sun's light, then the stars are also reflecting sun's light. But I think few verses before this, we have also read that on the moon there is a second kind of fire with cooling flames. The kusha grass burns, and then not exactly burns like burns, but there's a glowing kusha grass which produces light but without heat, and it's cooling. So which is which? Like, is it reflecting the sun's light, or is it having that second kind of fire? Well, the Prabhupada statement about the reflection of sun's light is not the Vedic description. he was just proposing the idea that if they say that the moon reflects sun's light, and for us it may appear like that only. If it reflects sun's light, then if nakshatrana maham shashi, if among the stars and the moon, Krishna says, the moon is considered among the stars. So that means the stars also must be having the same thing. But here, there's another description. Suryadinam dhruvapavarganam jyotirgananam. Okay, let's go to word. Surya Adinam, of the sun planet. Dhruva apavarganam, up to Dhruvaloka and other inferior luminaries. Luminaries means which are actually luminous, which produce their own light. Jyotihi gananam, of all the luminaries. So again, Jyotihi, light. Gananam means group, like group of planets, all the luminaries which produce light, like the sun. Gabhastayah, the rays, Arvachinan on this side. So that means, and if you see the translation as well, by the supreme will of Krishna, the mountain known as Lokaloka has been installed as the outer border of the three worlds, Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka, and Swarloka, to control the rays of the sun throughout the universe. All the luminaries from the sun up to Dhruvaloka distribute their rays throughout the three worlds, but only within the boundary formed by this mountain. Because it is extremely high, extending even higher than Dhruvaloka, it blocks the rays of the luminaries, which therefore can never extend beyond it. Okay, so here it is clear that all the luminaries from the sun up to Dhruvaloka, that means all of them are actually light emitting bodies. So not the sun alone, but all these are luminaries, and they distribute their rays throughout the three worlds. So here there is a different description that not just sun is the luminary, but all these are luminaries as well. They also produce light. So there's a difference of description. So it's important to note. So it's a little more complicated than it appears at first. Or nakshatrana maham shashi. It's not exactly that they reflect the sun's light. They are actually luminaries on their own. Sometimes Prabhupada just uses the modern understanding. For example, when it is said that the moon is 1.6 million miles above the sun, it is said, I think 200,000 yojanas high or something like this. Then Prabhupada says, so if the sun is 93.93 million miles away from the earth, the moon is 1.6 million miles higher, which is 95.6 million miles from the earth. But in this statement, Prabhupada is using the 93 million miles from the description of the modern astronomers. That is not the description given in the Puranas. So he's sometimes using this thing just to give an estimate of, or from our viewpoint, and then mixing it with the Puranic descriptions. But he's not saying exactly that the sun is 93 million miles. So he's saying if the sun is considered to be 93 million miles away from the earth, then the moon should be 95.6 million miles away from the earth, is what he's saying. But also there is a difference of understanding. The sun can be lower than the moon and still be farther than the moon. That's very much possible, because if you take a right angle triangle, this is very mathematical, very physics. So the topic is like that. For those who are not physics enthusiasts, it doesn't. So if there is a triangle, a long right angle triangle, and the vertical line is short, but this line is long, then the height of that vertical line is maybe this much. The moon can be here, And the sun can be in the hypotenuse here, which is very far from the earth. But the moon can be a little higher than the sun's height, but the sun can be much farther, and therefore the distance to the sun can be much longer than the distance to the moon here, although the moon may be higher than the sun in height. So the problem comes with the spherical understanding of the earth. When we take earth to be a sphere, when we mix the modern understanding of earth or the Surya Siddhantic understanding of the earth, which is like a globe, and the flat, the Bhugolaka, the big Bhumandal, which is vast, of which earth is a small part, a very minuscule part. So if we think the earth is a sphere, then it is like one point in space. Whereas if it is an absolute big plane where sun is here and the moon is here, but the earth is a huge flat disk, which is as it is described in the Puranas, then the reference will be different. So if it is just a one point, now if sun is this far and the moon is here, it looks like we cannot say that the height, we cannot say about height, because the height will only be there if it's a big flat plane, and then only the height matters. Otherwise, if it's just a thing like this, a sphere, then it's a distance and it's a distance. You cannot say, then the height means from the center of the earth to the sun. That's the height here, and this is the height here. Everything is the height all around because it's a sphere. Anyway, we see it's up, right? Even if it's like the bottom of the earth, it's still there, up. They see it as up. But actually, it is not exactly like that. It's a very peculiar illusion that we have, because as we know, there is the Garbhodaka ocean below. But if you look at space, there is no ocean. Even when the earth is like this or like this, whichever way, there is no ocean that we see. First of all, that water is spiritual. Brahma himself could not see the end of his lotus flower and the navel of Vishnu and the water in which he was lying. But the reason why we don't see that ocean is because actually the earth is flat. And it's not just a flat, thin disk. It is very, very thick as well. And in that subterranean regions, underground, are the lower planetary systems. They are not like planets on their own, like how the heavenly planets are there, like globes. So the subterranean planets, like the Tala, Atala, Talatala, Sutala, and all this, Rasatal, Patal. So they are all Tala. Tala means surface. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Rasatal, Patal, all is under the Tala of surface, underground. So it's like so below that are the hellish planets, and below that is the Garbhodaka ocean, and everything that we see is above this hemisphere of this sky above the earth. So we will never see the Garbhodaka ocean at all, because it will never be visible to us. And because I have mentioned this in conversations, private conversations, I think maybe in some lectures, that the reason why, you see, this thing is so long until half of my. Usually the garland should be like from here, the flower should come here. It should not be like this much string and this much flower. Anyway, so I was having private conversations with Prahlad Prabhu in Amalapuram when I went there recently. That the earth, the globe situation of the earth, is a peculiar illusion, because if you see, we all remember, those who are a little bit older, we remember, in the video games that we used to have, the video games that we play with the thing, and then there is this black and white screen, and then one snake game will be there, and it will go here and come back here, go here and come back here, kind of stuff. So For us, it is going there and coming back here. But if I am the snake, for me it is just I'm going around like that. And here also, I'll be going around like that. So for the snake, it will be like here and here, everything is around. For us, it's a flat from here. But for the snake, it's just like round because it's going here and coming back here. There's no latency, there is no lag. Just going. So we also, when we go here, south or north or whichever, we again come back here. And therefore, for us, it's a sphere. So that is very much possible that Krishna can do that illusion. As a planar region can appear spherical if he wants it to, because we are limited by the boundaries. We are not allowed to go beyond those limits, and therefore, even if we try, we will just come back from the other side. So for us, it's just like we are here only. I don't know if it makes sense. So, whichever way it is, it's always on the surface, Puranically speaking, not Siddhantically speaking, Surya Siddhanta. But Puranically speaking, it's always on the surface, and therefore the sky that we see is always up. And that's why the North Pole, the North Dhruvaloka, is always there, it's up. And we don't see the Garbhodaka ocean at all, because it's actually way beyond, way below. I was seeing the video yesterday, I did not watch the entire thing. It was a documentary on, what is it called? The moles. The mole people. MOLE people. Under the ground of Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is this gambling city, right, in America. So under the city, 7 floors under the city, there is a huge tunnel network. Actually, the tunnel is meant for water management, flood management. So when there's a rain, water goes below. Just like Singapore also has such water management. Because if there's rain, you don't see everything getting flooded, because it all goes down. And the biggest of such flood management is in Japan. Huge. It's like massive. If you go underground, it's so massive. It's like at least 30 stories high chambers, tunnels below. The tunnels are 30 feet high, 30 stories high, not 30 feet, maybe 300 feet high, like this. Big, massive pillars and everything. Anyway, in the Las Vegas, there are also these tunnels that do this, but there are people living there, homeless people, and they go this real deep underground, and also there's a lot of drugs go on and all kind of stuff goes on there, and they almost never see the sun. They are very hopeless conditions of life, really bad. Sometimes only some of them may come out, and sometimes it's very dangerous to go in. Actually, always dangerous to go in. It's very dark. And imagine if a flood comes and it wipes them out in the darkness. There's so many people die as well there. Very deep into the ground. They almost never come. And one of them was actually commenting on that video. Was, they have these subways, train. So underground, when it's in the tunnel, sometimes, so once apparently, he faced this situation where the train stopped in between 2 stations. Yeah? There's no platform. But then suddenly, near the window, of course, all glass, all air conditioned, so it's sealed. There's no opening. 2 people suddenly came at the window. He freaked out, and then within seconds, they just disappeared into the darkness. So there were tunnels there, and people were living, and there were all this network, a huge network of tunnels under the Las Vegas, and these train tunnels, the flood tunnels, and everything. They're living there. Why I'm telling this? That is very much similar to the subterranean planets. It's actually underground. So that is the situation of the subterranean planets, and the Jyotirgananam, the luminaries on the higher planets, starting from the sun up to the Dhruvaloka, it is said. So you can see all those of them are actually luminaries and bright planets in themselves. And so they can be like the sun. It's very much possible again. As much as we have read that stars are like the moon is like the stars, but also moon itself does not reflect light. It may reflect some light. Earth also reflects light, actually. But because when this light falls, anything will reflect. Like this is a reflecting light. This floor is reflecting light. Do you agree? You may say, where is the reflection? It's only because if it's reflecting, we can see it. It is reflecting the light falling on the surface, and therefore we can see it. If it does not reflect, we cannot see it. If it's like pitch black, non-absorbent, non-reflecting black, matte black, it will be very difficult to understand the situation of the light in such a place. When it's matte black, everything is matte black. Even if there is light, everything seems to absorb the light and it doesn't seem bright. When you have white walls, it will seem brighter than when it's black walls, because the white reflects the light that is falling on it. And that's why the whole room is brighter. When it's black, it absorbs the light, and so you need a lot of light. Even then, it will just absorb. Only the floor may reflect something. So everything reflects light, but also they have their own source of light. Now our machines, Chandrayaan and all this, Apollo, they have gone to the moon and they don't find that moon is a self-luminous object. Well, that's the illusion that Krishna has put us in. And the Surya Siddhanta way also, that's how we see it. But anyway, very bold. So with this description, I actually can go a little bit into the description of the Sanskrit that is there. But even here, do you have an idea where is this Lokaloka mountain and where is the Sumeru mountain? When all these names are mentioned, like 500 million yojanas, and which is 4 Jambudvipa only, or
Jambudvipa center Sumeru is little bit below and
yes,
so it is center
20,000 yojanas below the ground, 80,000 above the ground, total 100,000 yojanas high. Inverted cone, golden, pure gold mountain. Inverted cone. That's at the center of not only Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa itself is in the center of the entire Bhugoloka, Bhumandala. So it's the center of Bhumandala itself. So the Bhumandala is this Jambudvipa, the first island in which this Sumeru mountain is there, and many surrounding mountains as well, like mountain ranges all around, like 3 mountains, 3 mountains, 3 mountains, 3 mountains, all the way, north, east, west, south. And that's the Jambudvipa. And then there is the ocean, saltwater ocean. And then there is Plakshadvipa, and then like that, Shalmali Dvipa and all this. So all are like concentric circles of islands, and then ocean, and then islands and oceans, and like that. Each time the island is thicker by twice, and the ocean is also thicker by twice, like that. It's concentric circles. Concentric means same center. Concentric circle? Concentric circles means, what is that? When many circles have the same center. You have the protractor. Protractor? Okay. So if you take a protractor and put the pin at one side and the pencil on the other, and then draw a circle. Okay. Now you just keep the pin in the same place, extend this pencil, and then draw another one. So all of them will have the same center. So such circles are called concentric circles. They will never intersect. Like if a circle is here and a circle is here, they will intersect. But concentric circles will never intersect. It will just be same center, but always going on bigger. So when you throw a stone in the water, still water, then all the circles will expand, right? Those are all concentric. They will never clash with another. Only if there is another stone somewhere, those circles expanding from there and these circles expand, they will clash. But from the same center, they will never clash. They will expand only. So they're concentric. So it's concentric islands and oceans, islands and oceans, islands like that. It's round. this whole Bhumandala is like big disk and thick below. So Lokalok mountain is right at, you see, Turiya Bhagaha, Lokalokachalaha. So Achalaha means, Chalaha means moving, Achalaha means non-moving. So mountains are also called Achala. Some mountains can move, it is said. Some mountains have wings and they can move. Like Govardhan also moved. And sometimes tectonic movements can move mountains. But Achala means usually mountain and they never move. So Lokalok mountain is a big Achala, big mountain. And this mountain, where is it exactly? So the entire diameter, what is the diameter of the universe? What is the diameter? No. What is the definition of diameter? Because I really want to know whether we are getting everything right or not. What is diameter? Hmm? That's radius. Yeah, so
from one surface.
yes. On one side of the circle to the other side through the center is diameter. So radius is from the center to the perimeter for circumference. So the diameter of the universe is 500,000 yojanas, which comes to 4 billion miles. That is according to Puranic descriptions. Okay, we will go a little bit into that. But the Lokalok mountain is 1/4 of that distance of 500,000 yojanas from the center of from the Sumeru mountain, which is at the center of the Bhumandala. And I think in the next verse or somewhere, it is mentioned that the sun is right at the center of the universe. So if that is the case, vertical center of the universe, I think that's the next verse maybe. You can see 39 or 40. It is mentioned the sun is right at the vertical center of the universe. That means the Bhumandala is actually a little bit below, not exactly half. A little bit below than half. And that's where Bhumandala is. But also, half of the universe is filled with water. So probably the remaining half, the center of that, I don't know if it's exactly half or if it's some. What is the height of the Garbhodaka ocean? But to see all those statements together, of course, devotees have done some research work on all these measurements, and they have published some books as well, which I did not fully study at all. I've studied only like cursory study of 1 or 2 books and not really deep into that. But anyway, so the Bhumandala is a flat, and then the 500 million yojanas, or 4 billion miles, is the diameter of the universe. So 2 billion miles should be the radius, and 1 billion miles should be 1/4 of that entire diameter. So 2 billion miles is the radius, say, of the entire universe. So 1 billion miles, which is 125 million yojanas, is the diameter of the Lokalok mountain. So half of the radius of the universe at the halfway point is the Lokalok mountain. It's a round circumference, round mountain, not round mountain, cylindrical mountain, all across, all over the Bhumandal. And it extends high, very high cylinder, like even above Dhruvaloka it is. So Swargaloka, even Dhruvaloka, I think even above that there are planetary systems, like Brahmaloka is even higher. But until above Dhruvaloka, this mountain is so massive and entirely circumferencing the Bhumandala. is the Lokaloka mountain. And because all the luminaries from the sun up to Dhruvaloka, all of them are these bright planets, they diffuse so much light, but the light cannot go beyond the Lokaloka mountain. That means the half of the radius, the one half and the next half, that whole area, there's no light. If you see in the circle, there is a radius. If the radius is divided by 2 and you make another circle, that area and the bigger area is, the smaller circle is not half of the area of the bigger circle. It's not. Only the radius is half. The area is much bigger. The outside will be much bigger area than although the radius is, we have divided into half, but because here is only small circle, here this whole thing surrounding, therefore it will be more area, pi r square, and like 1 pi and 4 pi, so it's like 1/4. If it is say 3 and 6, 9 pi and 36, yeah, always 4, yeah, 1/4. It always comes to 1/4 of the area, half of the radius but 1/4 of the area. So if you remove the 1/4, so the rest will be 3/4 of the area, right? Get the point? Very mathematical. It's simple mathematics, but I don't know, not for everyone. So anyway, the area is much bigger, that is without any light. So only a small thing is actually with light. All the whatever we see is being in within that. Now, the modern understanding of the cosmos, the observable universe, they say, is so massive, it far extends beyond the dimensions here. 4 billion is like nothing according to modern astronomy. 4 billion miles is absolutely nothing. It looks like, oh, 4 billion miles. But they are talking about trillions and trillions and trillions. There was a recent, a short video where this physicist, what is his name? Brian Cox, I think. His name is Brian Cox. I think so. So he mentions about how vast this universe actually is, to give an idea. So he gives a whole picture of the sky and so many spots, like stars, And he says, this thing that you're seeing, each of those spots is not a star. Each of them is a galaxy. And then he goes on to describe that, from here to the Alpha Centauri, which is the nearest star, like the sun-like star, it will take 4 light years. If you are moving at the speed of light, it will take 4 years to get there, 4.2 years. And then he goes on to describe how far is the Milky Way galaxy, and then the next galaxy, how far it will be, how long it will take, even after then he shows a close-up of a galaxy, and then from the far picture of the galaxy to this close-up of the galaxy, it would have taken you some, let's say, I'm just throwing numbers, 200 million years, and then your view will be this now. And then you move another 100 million years, it will look like this, a little bit closer. So like that, he's just giving us an idea, and that's the distance from one galaxy to another. All these thousands of spots that you see in this thing, each of them is a galaxy, and so vast, cannot even wrap our head around it. But then this description is only 4 billion miles. How come? So there's interesting descriptions in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, because we know, even in the, I think Bhagavatam also it is there, where the shell of the universe each layer is 10 times the previous layer, right? And the first layer itself is 10 times, like, the radius, 2 billion miles is the radius. 10 times that, 20 billion miles is the thickness of the earth layer surrounding the universe. All around the universe, all sides. The water layer is 2 billion, 20 billion times 10, 200 billion miles thick water layer. Then 2 trillion miles thickness of fire layer, like that. So the last layer will make it quadrillion, something quadrillion, like huge numbers. And you may think, okay, if that is the shell, then it's all like a coconut inside, it's like outside is just like a coconut, we cannot even see anything. But from the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, we understand that actually that earth layer that is surrounding the surface, the circumference of the universe, the opulence inside that earth layer is greater than Brahmaloka. That means there is opulence in Brahmaloka. And this earth layer, the opulences inside that is nowhere to be found in the universe, not even on Brahmaloka. It is so high. And in that, Bhudevi, because it's the earth layer, Bhu. So Bhudevi is actually worshipping Varahadev. Varahadev is the presiding deity of that covering, earth covering. Imagine. The water covering Matsya is actually the presiding deity in that. So 200 billion miles of water, 200 billion miles of thickness of that whole thing around the 20 billion miles, which is already the earth layer, and the 2 billion miles, 22 billion miles, sorry, for, yeah, you get the idea, right? 22 billion, 44 billion miles is around that. There is a 200 billion mile water layer. Imagine, just so if you see the thickness of the coverings, the space within this universe is actually minuscule. It's atomic. It's many times like a nanoparticle. The space, entire space within the universe is like a nano, not even nano, it's pico, or even lesser compared to the distance of the coverings. And if the coverings are not exactly coverings like what we see, the earth layer is not like the earth here. Like here, earth is gross earth. There it is subtle earth. For example, when Krishna was in Dwaraka, Brahma came, right? And many Brahmas came to bow down to him. And at that time, when their heads touched the ground, their helmets touched the ground, because many of these Brahmas have millions of heads, and so that many helmets, like billions and trillions of helmets, touched the ground, and the sound was so tumultuous for this Brahma. Whereas other Brahmas could only see themselves, this Brahma could see every other Brahma bowing down, and then the sound was so tumultuous. Now, if you think about it, Brahma himself, forget about Brahma, ghosts have only subtle body. Above the ghosts are the Gandharvas, Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, and then Asuras, and then Devatas. How much more subtle they are compared to ghosts? How much more subtle Brahma and Brahma is? His abode and he himself are only Buddhimayam, it is said. Sometimes said Manomayam. Only made of mind, intelligence, and almost true ego, almost negligible false ego. Very subtle. And his crown, how it will be? He has a golden crown. Now, gold is a gross element. How this? Imagine a ghost with a subtle body and wearing a gold crown, like our visible gold crown. But no, he has a subtle gold crown. But still, it made sound when it touched the ground in Dwarka, and he could not see. It's very mystical how something like that happened. So that means these elements, like even Indra, he wears crown and he has a throne and everything. But if he's so subtle, what kind of a throne is he sitting on? Also subtle. But it's made of gold. So it's a subtle gold, a subtle earth. There is subtle earth, subtle water, subtle fire, everything. For example, on our computer screen, there is sometimes document, we word document or something, we type documents. And it looks like a document on the screen. But it is not a real paper. It's a subtle paper. It's not actually existing in a gross form. But when you print it, it comes gross, as in a gross form. Subtle form is just there, but you can't really touch it. You can touch the screen, but you cannot touch the page. So it's a subtle form. So subtle paper and gross paper. We also have a little bit of that kind of experience here. And in our head, we have some idea or a dream. They are subtle, but still they have forms. For us, it's very transient, but in the upper planetary systems, that's how their bodies are. So this subtle earth is subtle. So if we take into account all of that, if all these are subtle layers, and there are actually living entities living there, that is also said. There are living entities living there, full of living entities. All these surrounding, not just on Bhudevi and Varahadev, empty, all earth. There are living entities there, fully. And they're all worshipping the Lord in the much higher than even Brahma. Imagine what kind of living entity. Really hard to imagine. Sometimes when descriptions are given of the universe, that's why I always want to show this one. Because we cannot really describe the universe. From even the Bhagavatam, we may get some idea. But that is nowhere close to actually the real reality of the situation. It's still a very minuscule portion of the original reality. So you see here 5:16.4, Sukadeva Goswami is telling Maharaj Parikshit, the great Rishi Sukadeva Goswami said, my dear king, there is no limit to the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's material energy. This material world is a transformation of the material qualities Sattvagun, Rajogun and Tamogun, yet no one could possibly explain it perfectly, even in a lifetime as long as that of Brahma. See? Forget about Krishna and his spiritual opulence. Even the material opulences, material world, material universe cannot be explained. It is that mysterious. No one in the material world is perfect, and an imperfect person could not describe this material universe accurately even after continued speculation. So we should not be too worried about why these astronomers are saying like this big of a size and our Purana says such a small size of 4 billion miles only. So maybe there are, all these luminaries are from even those surrounding layers of the universe. You never know. So it's quadrillions, 44 something quadrillion. So if you take that, 2 billion is nothing. So it can be like that also. You never know. What are we actually seeing? It's a huge illusion. How much we are seeing and what exactly are we seeing? We don't really know. But we should know this much that, in today's verse, it is said, that's why it's very nicely said. I want to go back. I did not go to the Sanskrit part, but Okay, let's see. Loka vinyaso mana lakshana. Okay. Kavibhi, it is said here. You see this? Kavibhi, by learned scholars. This Kavibhi and Vichintita, established by scientific calculations. Kavibhi, by learned scholars. You see how it is? Learned scholars who are free from mistakes, illusion. You see how Prabhupada translated. Not just ordinary scientists, who are free from mistakes, illusions, and propensities to cheat. So such Kavibhi. And who is the original Kavi? Kavir Manishi Swayambhur Paribhuhu Swayambhu Yatha Tathyatortha Vedadat Chhasvatibhya Samabhya. Ishopanishad 8. You see Kavir. Kavi. Who is that? This is the Lord. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher. Self-sufficient philosopher means he does not need to speculate and try to understand. He needs instruments to find out. No. He already knows everything. And his philosophy is always perfect philosophy. So his philosophy is science. His philosophy is facts. Whereas our philosophy may or may not be fact. It can be speculation. So, self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So when we talk about these measurements, the learned scholars who are free from mistakes, illusions, and propensities to cheat have thus described the planetary systems and the particular symptoms, measurements, and locations. With great deliberation, they have established the truth See, with great deliberation. So, when our modern science does not match with it, so you see in the previous purport, Prabhupada mentioned very nicely. The vivid description of how the rays of the sun are distributed throughout the different planetary systems of the universe is very scientific. Okay. So Sukadeva Goswami described these universal affairs to Maharaj Parikshit as he had heard about them from his predecessor. He explained these facts 5,000 years ago, but the knowledge existed long before because Sukadeva Goswami received it through disciplic succession. Because this knowledge is accepted through the disciplic succession, it is perfect. The history of modern scientific knowledge, on the contrary, does not go back more than a few hundred years. Therefore, even if modern scientists do not accept the other factual presentations of Srimad Bhagavatam, how can they deny the perfect astronomical calculations that existed long before they could imagine such things? There is so much information to gather from Srimad Bhagavatam. Modern scientists, however, have no information of other planetary systems and indeed are hardly conversant with the planet on which we are now living. Now, of course, the modern scientists are not going to accept. Here, Prabhupada said, even if modern scientists do not accept other factual presentation, how can they deny the perfect astronomical calculation? They actually do deny. Because they think this is pseudoscience. They call it pseudoscience. Or you are saying something which does not match our Hubble telescope photographs or measurements that we are making. But then, what they do forget is our measurements and everything, our instruments with which we measure, everything are defective. So what are we actually seeing? There's another, even the physicists sometimes think that the reason why we see such a huge, vast universe can also be just a hall of mirrors effect. A hall of mirrors, if you go into a small room with everywhere mirrors, up, down, all sides, it will look like a very, very big room and with multiple instances of yourself and everybody in the room, and it looks like thousands of people, millions of people, although it's maybe 4 people only in the room. So all of the mirrors. So it can look like much bigger than it actually is. So that is another plausible explanation of the illusion of the universe, like why we may see it that big. Why would the scientists see that big? And if you distort the mirrors, some of them, if the mirrors are all straight, yeah, you will see the same version of you in the millionth instance. But if the mirrors are actually a little bit curved and convex and concave and straight and a little bit twisted and this and that, it can create a wide variety of different shapes and sizes, right? And if we have a whole hall like that, it can look much bigger than it actually is. So that can be another reason why. So that illusion may be playing, and maybe it's the coverings of the universe, according to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which they have also living entities. So what exactly we are seeing, we do not know. So when Krishna describes in the Bhagavatam, it may be a simplistic description sometimes. Nevertheless, that may be the principle, but there may be much more complexity in that thing. I'll give an example. Like when people, what we understand, reincarnation. Okay, there's a simple description, vasam sichiranani yatha. Oh, every day we, take off clothes and wear clothes, and similarly we take off bodies and wear new bodies. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Then how do we get new body? Oh, according to our karma. Okay. Court of law. If I do a crime, I'll get a sentence. Okay, fine, understood. Now, to add to that, it all looks well and good. Now it is said that if you go to heaven after enjoying, you will come back. Okay, accept. And we go to hell, then we suffer there, and then we take birth in the animal species, lowest of animals, and then slowly rise up to again human life. Again, we get a chance to mend our ways, and if we don't, again we fall back into the birth and death cycle. And if we do mend our ways, then we go back to Krishna. So okay, that makes sense. Now add to that the complexity. Chandogya Upanishad says, and it is mentioned in the 8.3 purport and also in the Bhagavatam as well, one of the purports. It's from Chandogya Upanishad 7.26.2. So there is mentioned that how does the soul fall from the heavenly planets? He falls in the form of rain. And then he goes into grains. And then goes into this food of the man, Brahmana or something like that, aristocratic. And then goes into the semen. And then goes into the womb. And then takes birth again into this aristocratic families. So now if you think about it a little bit, how is he coming down as rain? Rain is water. And rain, the clouds are just in our atmosphere here. Earth. The heavenly planets are way above the clouds. How is he falling as rain? And even if he comes as rain and goes into the ground, not comes as rain, comes in the rain. Because rain is a water, it's just a material element. If the soul is in that water, it goes down to the ground. Into the plant, how does the soul get from the ground to the plant? Because the seed is from where the plant is actually growing, not from the water. Water is just supplying. It's a material element. How the soul goes from here to the seed and then goes in, and then each seed is a potential life again. How exactly it is happening? If you really go minute, it is very difficult to understand. And even if it went through the grain, why can't the grain be eaten by an animal or a Shudra? Or why only the Brahmana? Why he takes birth? What happens to the... So how is the soul going only to the Brahmana's mouth and or some aristocratic, some, and not others? Other also, what kind of souls are going into the animal's mouth? Or the others who are not so aristocratic, their mouth? How is it? It is too complicated. So Krishna is giving us sometimes very simplistic descriptions. Oh, you do punya, okay, you enjoy. If you do papa, you suffer. But there are so many things which are combinations of both. Sometimes punya, sometimes papa. While doing punya, we do some papa. While doing papa, we may do some punya. Anything can happen. And all of that has to be taken into account. All of that has to be rewarded or punished. So, and Subala Prabhu was sharing with me a few months back that I think Chandogya Upanishad or something, the Sanchita Karma, even though this life is actually because of our past lives activities, right? But sometimes even the actions of this life, we will have reactions in this life only. Apart from whatever is already ordained by previous life. This life, what we commit, usually it's for the next life, because whatever is here is already decided. But no, sometimes even this life actions can influence our this life's reaction. So how does that work? How it is get adjusted, but when it's already decided that this much, how is it getting adjusted inside that one? So it's actually, if you go in, even the karma, law of karma, anything that is simply described by Krishna, when you go a little bit more, there is so much complexity. So much complexity. So even the descriptions of the Puranas, now he gave a synoptical description of the universe, but if you really go into depth, there can be so much complexity. And that's why when Arjuna it is said Anekadha, that verse 11, 13, in the universal form, what he saw was Tatraikastham Jagatkritsnam Pravibhaktam Anekadha. You see? Apashyad Devadevasya Sharire Pandavasya. You see? What he saw in the universal form, Virat Rupa, he was seeing it from one place. Tatra Ekastham. Situated in one place, Arjuna, he could see everything in the universe. And how he was saying, could see in the universal form of the Lord the unlimited expansions of the universe. It means the same universe is expanded in many, many ways, can be perceived in many, many ways to different living entities. And therefore, what we may see as sphere can appear as plane to others. Very much possible. So the same thing can be visible and perceived in various different ways, and projections and illusions, and there's multiple ways that Krishna can actually bewilder us, and therefore we shouldn't be too proud of our senses and think that if I can corroborate with my senses, that is truth, and if your Vedic description does not coincide with my corroborate with my and so your Vedic literature is wrong, my vision is correct. That is a wrong conclusion to come to. It's a very limited perspective, which we should shed. If we are to progress in spiritual life, we have to accept the much more established philosophers of the Vedas than these, which were, and this philosophy existing for millions of years, compared to a few hundred years of Galileo and all these space enthusiasts who have come up and seeing everything through their eyes. Look at, okay, one last example before we close. Look at how we navigate today. Another good example. Today we navigate with a GPS system and a map of the city, right? Or country or whatever. So it's basically a vision from the top down. Top down, okay, this is the road, this is the, so that vision. Whereas for the longest time, people navigated by looking down up into the sky. Where is the North Star? Okay, pole star is here, that's north. Okay, then I have to go to the north and this much and that much. So they used to have a map of the sky from the earth. Now we have a map of the earth from the sky. Even the way we look at things, and we think that is the most effective way of travel, but people, even until few hundred years ago, like that, who's that discovered America? Columbus, Christopher Columbus. He also, and even other great navigators of his time, they had very good knowledge of the map of the sky. So which constellation, where they are, and where is the north star. So they used to change the direction accordingly, even on the sea. That used to be the navigation for the longest time. So apart from gravitational influence of the planets, there is also the subtle influence of the planets, like we know in astrology. The subtle influence of the planets, which is unknown to, again, modern astronomers. So much more complexity to these things than it may appear on the surface. Even if the Bhagavatam descriptions are there, it's all by the arrangement of Krishna. Everything is actually nicely explained. Everything is going on and it's nicely explained in Bhagavatam, but you should always understand that that's not a very comprehensive description of the universe. As Sukadeva Goswami said, I am only giving you a synopsis of main regions, principal regions of Bhumandala, and that's it. I'm not going very detailed. This is not detailed version. Imagine detailed version. So actually, I have no time to go through the Sanskrit of this thing. You can read on your own. No, yeah, actually, that's what I wanted to show. Actually, it is not very difficult to literally translate these words. Many of these words, there's no translation of this. But actually, if you know a little bit, if you have been following the word-to-word meanings of Prabhupada's books, this should not be very much difficult. I was actually reading the whole Sanskrit. I could understand almost everything, what is written here. But I should just put it in numbers, like all the numbers that are being mentioned here. For example, you see this one? Okay. This number here, Sardha Dvadasha Koti Yojana. What is that? Sa Ardha. Ardha means half. Sa Ardha Dvadasha. So 12 and a half. That means a half plus 12, 12 and a half Koti Yojana, which is 125 million yojanas, which is 1 billion miles. So Vistarochaya iti artha bhustu. So bhustu means only the earth, the Bhumandala is that big, that wide. 1 point, what is this? 125 million yojanas radius. Something like that. Turiya Bhaga means 1/4 of that. Panchashat Koti Yojana Pramanam Tasya. That means this is 500 million miles. See? Tatu Lokalokastu Bhugolakasya Bhu Sambandha Andagolakasyati Arthaha. So I get very rough idea of what it is saying there. That's why I wanted to go into it, but no time. Surya Seva Bhuvopi Andagolakayor Madhyavartitvat Khagolam. You see? Madhyavartitvat Khagolam. Khagolam means the entire space, the spherical space of the universe. Madhyavartitvat. At the center is Surya. Suryasi eva bhuvopi. अंडगोलकयोर मध्यवर्तित्वात् खगोलम इव भूगोलमपि 50 कोटि योजन प्रमाणं तस्य तुरीयभागः सार्ध 12 कोटि योजन विस्तारोच्छ्राय इति अर्थभूस्तु चतुस्त्रिंशल् लक्षोन 50 कोटि प्रमाण. You know what is that? Chatustrimshal means 34 laksha, 34 lakhs. Unapanchashat means 49 koti, that means 490 million plus 34, something like this. So I just have to write all the numbers down, actual calculation, then only can actually properly describe what is going on. Manasottara Madhya Paryantam, Paryantam means again perimeter, Manasottara mountain. स अर्ध सप्तपंचाशल लक्षोत्तर कोटि योजना प्रमाणम. Again, स अर्ध सप्त means 7.5, पंचाशल 50 lakhs plus 7.5, 57.5 lakhs on top of koti, so 10 million. So we have to just add all that thing, then we get the numbers. Swadudaka samudra paryantam, so the sweet water samudra, surrounded by the sweet water samudra. And Shannavati laksha yojana, that means 96 lakhs yojana pramanam tataha. Kanchani bhumi, the golden land. And it's very interesting. That's the other thing which we read in the other day, right? The golden land where, okay, that's the last thing I want to say. You see, where's the golden land? No, not Aloka. Before Lokalok mountain, I think this 37 only. No? How come? Maybe the next mountain, next one. On top of the Lokalok mountain. Oh. What happened to the golden land? Falls never received. Okay, 35. Today was what? Okay, so 35. You see this? Beyond the ocean of sweet water is a tract of land as broad as the area between the middle of Mount Sumeru and the boundary of Manasottara mountain. In that tract of land, there are many living beings. Beyond it, extending to Lokalok mountain is another land which is made of gold. Because of its golden surface, it reflects light like the surface of a mirror, and any physical article that falls on that land can never be perceived again. All living entities therefore have abandoned that golden land. Now, how to even imagine this, no? If it falls, it will never be perceived again. We cannot see that again. So, a similar phenomenon of modern astronomy is a black hole. They call it a black hole. A black hole, there is what is it called? The event horizon, it is said. And after the event horizon, we can never be perceived again when it goes into the black hole. Is described in different ways. Proper description of that is, and also it acts as a lens. The black hole acts as a lens. Here it says the surface of a mirror, reflects like the surface of a mirror, and that kind of a thing happens, a refraction of light around the black holes. Difficult to explain, Bhagavatam class, but yeah, there is some similarity somewhere, but we don't want to be too worrying about whether we are corroborating with modern astronomy or not every time, because we don't have to every time. Because if they are seeing in an illusory way, we don't have to corroborate everything that they see. But they have some concept like that, where a black hole, then you cannot see it again. Here also there is another description of a golden land, where if anything drops there, we cannot see it again. And therefore, all living entities have abandoned that golden land. And so Anyway, it's very interesting, very fascinating, very mysterious. But all of this, actually, I wanted to go to the next verse. We don't have time. But next verse, we will see that actually on top of the Lokalok mountain also, the Lord is there. So the whole point is, even if we don't understand the entire exact situation, and which we can never understand, situation of the universe, one thing we should understand is only with the Lord's involvement or with the Lord's presence is everything actually going on. Whatever, however complicated it is going on because of the Lord. So our focus comes back to the Lord. Although we discuss all these things, it comes back to the Lord. And that is the theistic science that we are trying to learn here. Not atheistic science where everything is devoid of God, devoid of life, devoid of purpose, devoid of reason. Everything is just like a bang without a meaning. So I'll stop here. Any questions or comments?
Sun is revolving on the Manasottal mountain. Sun is revolving on the Manasottal mountain.
Yeah. I have a good comment in the comment section. Somebody said, this is the most reasonable flat earth argument I have heard, and I'm a globe head. I have never considered this. So probably because, that the screen, that snake thing, the wrapping of experience, where it is a flat on the top, but actually it's a globe. So when our boundaries of exploration there are invisible boundaries where we cannot extend beyond that, and we are made to just revolve here, then it can very much be possible that this is possible. You see, that's why there are in modern thinkers there are these flat earthers and the globe earthers. The flat earthers are saying, even many Westerners, they say Earth is flat, and many say Earth is globe, and there is always this fight among them both. And many of the people who consider the Earth as a sphere they consider these flat earthers as illogical people. And actually, their descriptions of flat Earth are illogical. So it doesn't make sense at all. But the whole idea of this flat Earth is not entirely illogical, and that's why the Puranic description of the flat Bhumandala and the Surya Siddhanta's description of the globe Earth can very well be harmonized if we understand how it is situated. Even if we do not understand exactly how it is situated, but with some analogies, we can get an idea of how to understand these two almost opposing viewpoints. And there is this beautiful verse from the Kurma Puran, which is quoted in the Laghu Bhagavatamritam by Rupa Goswami, 1.5.327. It is said there, Virodho Vakyayor Yatra. Virodho Vakyayor Yatra Napramanyam Tadishyate Yathaviruddhata Chasyat Tasyarthaha Kalpyate Tayoho. Beautiful description from Kurma Puran. It is said, whenever there are two opposing statements in the Vedic literature, or sometimes even this astronomy, which is a little bit similar to Surya Siddhantic description of the universe. So when there are two Vedic statements which seem contradictory, that does not mean that these are conflicting descriptions. They can well be describing the same thing from different perspectives, from different viewpoints. Because if we know how evidence works in a court, I met one of my friends who's a lawyer. I went to his office and he said this: perception is everything in a court of law. What do you mean? I asked, what do you mean? Because the same event, when you're trying to find evidence and witnesses for an event, okay, this happened. Is there a proof? Is there a witness? So the same event is described by different people who witnessed it, definitely, but they describe it differently because of their own upbringing, their own backgrounds, the way they saw it, the angle in which they saw it, and what they thought was the motive before what happened. So different people have different perceptions of the exact same event. So similarly, the Vedic statements, and it's not that all of them are describing different events, same event. So similarly, perspectives, because of the how the Lord can engineer the illusion, the same thing can be perceived in different ways. The magician sees it in one way, the audience sees it in another way. And if in the audience there is a actual magician who knows the trick of this magician, he will see in another way. The same thing. But because the illusion, different people see differently. So the master of all illusion, Yogeshwara, Yatra Yogeshwara, master of all mystics, Krishna, when he does his illusion, nobody can find out. Everybody is convinced of their viewpoint. And if anything, I want to show that, which will give us an idea. Okay, 11:22:4. I'll just go to this English for time's sake. Lord Krishna replied, because all material elements are present everywhere. I earlier said, the subtle earth, subtle water, all this, you see. Because all material elements are present everywhere, it is reasonable that different learned Brahmanas have analyzed them in different ways. All such philosophers spoke under the shelter of my mystic potency, and thus they could say anything without contradicting the truth. Important. Without contradicting, they're not saying different things or not truth. They may be describing the truth in their own perception. Okay. Now, next. When philosophers argue, I don't choose to analyze this particular case in the same way that you have. It is simply my own insurmountable energies that are motivating their analytic disagreements. See? Because of his insurmountable energies, which tremendously illusion us, everyone is convinced of their own thing, own perception. And they may disagree. By interaction of my energies, different opinions arise. But for those who have fixed their intelligence on me and control their senses, differences of perception disappear. And consequently, the very cause for argument is removed. For us, the argument between flat earth and round earth is removed because both are possible in the same situation. In the same situation, both are possible. And that is the Kurma Puran's statement. Virodho vakyayor yatra napramanyam tadishyate yatha viruddhata chasya tathartha kalpyate tayoh. That means we should, if there are conflicting opinions or statements in the Vedas, we should accept them in such a way that there is no more contradictions. That means we should now expand our understanding to accommodate these conflicting viewpoints and harmonize them so that there is no more contradiction. So because the devotees can do this, because they have faith in Krishna, who can be the master of all illusion. When gopis danced with Krishna in the Rasa dance, the time of the gopis, one night of Brahma, but it happened in one night of earth. How did it fit? He went to Brahmaloka and came back, or no, he was here. So how does it all happen? It can happen. So Krishna can do all of that. So we shouldn't be too worried about the contradictions. Conflicting varieties of perception are created by the interaction of the Lord's material energies in the minds of different philosophers. So, you see, O best among men, because subtle and gross elements mutually enter into one another, philosophers may calculate the number of basic material elements in different ways according to their personal desire. See, the subtle and gross elements mutually enter into one another. If you go to the next one, all subtle material elements are actually present within their gross effects. Similarly, all gross elements are present within their subtle causes. Since material creation takes place by progressive manifestation of elements from subtle to gross. Thus, we can find all material elements within any single element. So, although it is given, Bhumi, Rapa, Vayu, okay, there's 8 material energies, okay, we have these 8 million energies, then we have the mind, mind is already within that. Then we have 3 modes of material energies, that all sounds good now. Okay, I understood. Really? Okay, now this verse comes and say, subtle are in the gross are in the subtle. Thus, we can find all material elements within any single element. Now, what is going on? Like how? So, if you see how the illusion can add up, if you add up all these permutations and combinations, it can be very, very complicated. But Krishna explains in such a way that we can understand, we can grasp some simplified version of it. We should always understand that the truth is much more complicated than what is presented. And we should have the faith that Krishna will never cheat us in his descriptions, and nor do the authoritative sages. And in that way, we should increase our faith in Krishna's description and the Shastric descriptions. सिद्धांत बोलिया चित्ते ना करो आलस, इहा होते कृष्ण लागे सुदृढ़ मानस. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So, in this way, accepting, then our mind will be attached to Krishna. All right. Thank you very much. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंद, हरि हरि, हरे कृष्ण.